and welcome to the the daily liberation through our eyes podcast. This is not CNN. This is not Fox. This is not MSNBC. This is the table where we tell the truth the way it has to be told, because headlines don't just happen to us; they happen through us. And if we don't claim the lens that we need to look through, the world will interpret us out of our own story, okay? We have a long one tonight. It's going to be long, and I'm just getting home. It's kind of late. But we are actually living in the days of chaos, and it's treated like currency. Distraction is the strategy. Power is willing to burn the house down if it means staying in charge of all of the ashes. It's amazing. Today, we're going to look carefully at what's unfolding around us. We have a government shutdown, weaponized like a hostage situation. We have a president who calls himself strong while building ballrooms and starving the poor. Of course, we're going to go back into generals being summoned to Quantico, berated, silenced, and threatened, of course. That is in the news headline still. Immigrants being scapegoated while citizens are zip-tied to their own homes. Courts are scrambling to hold a line while white supremacy is sitting comfortably in the West Wing of the White House. And family, make no mistake about it, these are not isolated headlines. These are pieces of the same pattern. Every piece fits everywhere else. This is authoritarianism, and that has made this a rehearsal place for America. And this always makes Black life the first collateral. A pattern that demands that we ask not just what's going on, but what does this mean for us as a people, as a Black people? So get you something to drink, and just, we're going to go right in. So in 2013, Trump said a shutdown means that the president is weak. Now he's orchestrating it, but I want you to notice that there's a spin on things, okay? Weakness is suddenly sold as a strategy. Suddenly, cruelty is the leadership role, is taking the leadership role. So what is this shutdown meaning on the ground? Federal workers are disproportionately Black and brown, working paycheck to paycheck, and are locked out of stability. Families are already, once again, we talked about living in scarcity. And now they have to brace for more. And that's not just economics. That's trauma. That's the nervous system reliving the same story of you might not eat. You might not make rent. You may not belong. But we already know we don't belong. Communities are relying on food assistance, health clinics, housing support. But all of that is also thrown into uncertainty as well because of this shutdown. And while all of this is unfolding, Trump is expanding construction on I think it's 90,000 or 80,000 square foot ballroom, a golden ballroom at the White House. A golden palace, if you will, while people are really going through some things. And I want to say this, that is not governance, that's monarchy. That's Marie Antoinette let them eat cake, but this time it's spray tan and a red tie. And Black America is very familiar with this pattern. We know it very well. We've always been asked to hold the suffering while somebody else builds monuments. We built the plantations, y'all. We actually built the White House that he's in. We built Wall Street, and in every single collapse, we were told to tighten our belt. We were told to pray harder. We were told that we're survivors. But once again, scarcity is not the thing for us. Suffering is not proof of righteousness, and I want y'all to get that out of your mind. Endurance is not the same as liberation, okay? So when we are seeing all this, we're seeing the shutdown, don't just see politics, okay? See the trauma replay. See the ways our bodies are conditioned to expect less, to brace for the pain, to think we don't deserve better. And also call this what it is. This is abuse, y'all. It's abuse on a national scale. All right. I'll be right back. All right. So I'm back. Okay. So the shutdowns is stealing from the poor. And the scapegoating, machine, it just keeps on running. So Senator Sheldon Whitehouse said healthcare for illegal aliens is really just the new immigrants are eating cats and dogs. That is the Republican playbook. Okay. They invent a lie. They repeat it enough times until fear feels like fact. It doesn't mean it's fact. It just feels like it. Then they blame the Democrats for the crisis that they created. But here is something that's a little bit deeper. Scapegoating immigrants is never about immigrants, y'all. It's actually about training the nation to accept cruelty as a normal thing. It's about saying, if we can dehumanize them, if we can make them seem less human, we can also dehumanize you next. So look at Chicago, consciously reported about it. The Korean vegan reported about it. Federal agents stormed apartments, dragged out children, U.S. citizens, by the way, zip-tied them, and held them for hours without any rights. Does that sound like immigration policy to you? It sounds like rehearsal to me. It sounds like behavior rehearsal. Because if they can disappear your neighbor in the night, they can disappear you. Okay? And for us black people, and I don't want y'all to miss this, immigrant scapegoating is just a mirror. Because the lie has always been, you're dangerous, you're a criminal, you don't deserve, or you're undeserving. It doesn't matter if it's a border or a block. The logic is never changing. The logic is still the same. So family, when we hear illegal alien, understand it is not just rhetoric. It's a blueprint for our very erasure. I want y'all to understand that. We're not dealing with regular people here, okay? So let's just breathe for a moment. Because hearing about all this stuff is working my nerves. And my nervous system is getting worked up. So, and I'm just preparing for the worst. But I'm not afraid. I'm just preparing for the worst. So what I want you to do, I want you to take a breath. Just inhale. Hold it and release it. Feel your feet on the ground or in the air, however you do it. Remind yourself that you are not powerless. We are witnesses, and witnesses carry the fire to be able to speak. One of the things I need you to hear is this. Trump and his sidekick, Pete, dragged generals and admirals from across the globe to Quantico, Virginia, not even the most protected place, just to berate them, to try and humiliate them, to call them, literally calling them men weak and women weak. Men and women who've trained many times their whole lives, because these are 4- and 5-star generals. They've studied the history of every war. They understand the weight of defense. They're being shouted down by a 5-time draft dodger and a TV host who had to promise to stop drinking just to get a job. But he has not stopped drinking. He left. He lied, just like all of them do. So do you see how that's inversed? Discipline is mocked by the recklessness of it all. History is mocked by ignorance. Leadership is mocked by a man who has never bled for anything except his bruised to his egos. And when Trump tells them the enemy is the American people, that is not just rhetoric, y'all. That is actually an order that he's giving. He is telling commanders, aim your weapons on American citizens. And let me say this out loud. The generals did not clap. The generals did not bow. They sat in silence. They remembered their oath. Finally, someone who did something like because their oath is to the Constitution, not to King Donnie. But I want y'all to understand, Trump is already whispering about firing them people and replacing those generals with loyalists, turning the Pentagon into his private militia. And for y'all people, my people out there, stay out of these armed forces. I said it last night, I'm gonna say it again, because this regime would rather see you murdered by your peers than to have you fighting the White House. Okay, and we have to remember something. We can't keep sending our children to fight and die for an empire and a people that sees them as disposable. Let it defend itself. We have built too many of their wars and spilled too much of our blood for their shortcomings. We got to do better. And then there's the headline about armed conflict with drug cartels. What does that mean? What does that mean? It means when a president cannot govern, that president manufactures a war, and when a con man can't feed the people, he feeds them fear. This war is smoke and mirrors, because what does it mean when you declare armed conflict with cartels? It means there is an endless justification for military budgets to grow. It means there can be endless rates. It means communities in Latin America can be burned while Wall Street launders the money. Do not forget that the U.S. has never been at war with drugs. It has always been at war with black and brown bodies, though. From Nixon to Reagan to Clinton to Bush, every war on drugs, every drug war has meant more prisons, more police, more chains, more shackles. So when Trump says we're in armed conflict, he is not talking about saving lives, y'all. He is literally talking about expanding cages, expanding raids, expanding the machine of criminalization that is always fed on who? Us first. And this is what cuts deeper. This very same government screaming about cartels has never shut down the banks that profit off the cartel money. Never shut down any of those pharmaceutical companies that profit off addiction. Ooh. Never shut down the politicians that profit off of chaos, which most of them are doing in both of the houses. Both of the parties. War is not about victory. War is about profit, y'all. And in America, profit is always the bottom line. And it's always pulled from the black and the brown people's pain. Just want y'all to remember that and keep that in mind while we're dealing with this. Also, Hexeth. This man stood up and said there would be no more anonymous complaints about sexual assault in the military. I want you to think about that real quick. There have been over 8,000 reports in a single year, and his solution isn't to fix the abuse. It's to make sure that the survivors are silenced. What does that sound like to you? Sounds like plantation logic. It sounds like church cover-up logic. It sounds like patriarchy that's sharpening its teeth. We cannot ignore the trauma that this is reflective of. Women, especially black women, silenced, dismissed, told that their pain doesn't matter. Even black men told that their survival must be sacrificed for a system, or this system to be exact. This is not about military policy. It's a mirror of the wider culture in which we are forced to live in. Because if the military can silence women at scale, what does that say to the workplace? What does that say to school? What does that say to these church people? That victims should stay quiet. That truth is dangerous. That power is always going to protect itself. But I'm going to tell you, silence is not going to protect you. It's not protection. It is complicity. Okay. And as the silenced people, we really need to consider rising. For real, be honest. We cannot let silence be. And when what feels like the walls are closing in on us, I would say that there are cracks of resistance that are steadily appearing. So a federal judge appointed by Trump himself blocked Trump's plan to strip $233 million in FEMA disaster relief from blue states. What does that mean, though? What does that mean? Trump was willing to starve families in the middle of hurricanes and wildfires just to punish political opponents. Hostage taking, cruelty on purpose. But the courts finally stepped in, at least for right now. We'll see what happens. But understand, we can't mistake this pause for protection, because courts have always been double-edged swords for us. The same bitch that gave us Brown versus the Board of Education gave us Plessy versus Ferguson. The same robes that struck down segregation turned around and upheld voter suppression. So yes, celebrate the ruling right now, but do not relax under any circumstances, because this fight is not one in these courtrooms. It's one in the streets. It's one in organizing. It's one in the refusal to normalize abuse, because that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a bunch of abuse. We're in an abusive relationship. So I also need us to sit with a pattern. Shutdowns, we got the raids, then we got the wars, then we got silent survivors. What is it that everything have in common? They are all strategies of exhaustion. Exhaust everybody so that they stop fighting. Exhaust the truth so lies sound like they can be believable. Exhaust the body so the spirit feels weak. How many of you are tired? Exhaustion is not the end of the story. We've always turned exhaustion into innovation, okay? We've always turned our grief into gospel. That's what gospel music and blues were formed of. So this collapse we can turn into creativity as well. We're not all just survivors, y'all. We are the very architects of liberation. And we're dealing with Jim Crow 2.0 in a suit, okay? The architect behind much of this poison is the very Stephen Miller. Spent years whispering white supremacy into presidential ears, from cages at the border to Muslim bans, now emboldened policies that scream Jim Crow 2.0. And here is the truth. America never got rid of Jim Crow. It dressed it up. It put it in think tanks, in law firms, in the White House offices. And Miller is the polished version of that rotten stuff. Anti-black, anti-immigrant, anti-human. Even his rabbi said he's a horrible person. Why are we surprised? White supremacy never retires. It reinvents. It moves from burning crosses to burning paperwork that denies asylum. From chains on your wrist, in prison beds, and to having to sit in the back of the bus to voter ID laws. So when people ask, how do we slip back into this era? The answer is honestly, we never left this era. We just believed America when it said racism was post-racial. I didn't. We have to name Miller, and we have to understand that his policies for what they are. It is a return to legalized white terror. And that means we cannot be lulled into thinking this is normal politics, y'all. This is racial warfare waged through policy. They are working not through all this other stuff. They're working through policy, even if that policy is directly tied to executive orders. And if you think the rhetoric cannot get any darker, I want you to think about Arizona. A sitting Republican state representative who openly called for Congressman Jayapal to be executed for encouraging peaceful protest against this regime. Executed executed for free speech. That don't rattle you, because when elected officials can casually suggest hanging a woman of color for exercising constitutional right of speech, that's not a debate, y'all. That's fascism. This isn't French either. A lot of people say, oh, that's the French, but no. This is not a lone wolf. This is the logical extension of a party that excuses January 6th people, that calls Black Lives Matter terrorism, and that criminalizes the very essence of saying, I don't agree with you. Literal dissent. And I'm going to say this plainly. Fascism always begins with the call to silence people's voices, then escalates to killing bodies. We've seen this story too many times. We've seen it in Germany. We've seen it in South Africa. We've seen it in Poland. We've seen it in all these other, and guess what? Now we're seeing it here. If we don't resist, we gonna see it here again. But here is a deeper reality from a spiritual perspective. When oppressors are calling for executions, it's because our words still carry power. They fear us because truth can never be shackled. That's why they want to destroy the messengers. You are the messenger. And I need also to continue to remind us of something that even our own legal codes confess. Under one of them legal codes, treason is punishable by death. And what is treason? It is attempting to destroy the Constitution. Trump and those enable him have done more to upend the foundations of this republic than any outside enemy in modern day history. You can't call yourself patriotic while declaring that your fellow citizens are the enemy. You can't swear an oath, and then attack the very structure you swore to defend. So if we're going to talk about execution, let's turn that mirror around where it belongs. Not on the protesters, not on the immigrants, not on those of us who are telling the truth, but to those who decided to dismantle democracy from the inside. Trump, his regime, all of the Republican Party, and some of y'all Democrats too. Jeffries, Schumer, Booker, Pelosi. Oh, so also FEMA funds fought over in the court. Workers are going unpaid during the shutdown. What does Trump announce? Once again, that expansion. This is absolutely ridiculous. Everything that we're going through is, I don't want to say it's arrogance. I think it's symbolism. Empire always wants to build these monuments while everything crumbles. Pharaoh had the pyramids. Rome, Colosseum. Trump, the ballroom. And also, guess what else it is? It's a distraction. Circuses. Look at the grandeur. Forget the hunger. Forget the raids. Forget the lockup. The evicted people don't forget, y'all. The people that don't get paid don't forget. We don't forget. And history has taught us the moment that the people stop forgetting, tyrants change how they maneuver. That don't mean they're going to stop, but they change how they maneuver. And I'm going to use the word fascist. If something looks like fascism, legislates like fascism, silences dissent like fascism, it is fascism. Don't be ashamed and afraid of that word. And when you criminalize being called a fascist, which Trump is doing, you kind of prove that it fits. We can't allow shame to take over, okay? And once again, we cannot continue to be silent. We cannot be shamed. If speaking truth makes us targets, then let us be loud enough to shake the walls. Because the only antidote to fascism is fearless truth, lived in the community, embodied in solidarity. And for me, I'm not going out in the streets. I'm going to write. I'm going to do what I'm doing with this. Do what you can do. Do your best work. So we've talked about a lot of stuff tonight, especially about white supremacy and all this other stuff. I think the weight of all this stuff is very heavy, but our response cannot be despair. Our response must be memory. We have to remember Harriet. We have to remember Malcolm. We have to remember Asada. Because we have to remember every ancestor who lived through their own Jim Crow period. And those people refused to bow. And just like those people, we must refuse to bow. And for us as a people, these are not just headlines. These are actually wounds. I want to say that these are wounds. Every time we hear about a shutdown, it's more trauma. We just know what all this feels like when paychecks stop, when the programs that we need freeze, and even when food stamps get delayed. Everything is honestly breaking down away from politics, and it's going into that space of morality. When troops get called in our own cities, and when people are dragged out of apartments and zip ties, our elders and our babies, and when officials call for open executions, it's not just news. This is memory, y'all. Memory that we have to take in. It's the memory of overseas. It's the memory of slave patrols. It's the memory of lynch mobs. Our bodies remember this stuff, even if the history books try to forget it. And that's why our anxiety strikes so high and spikes up. That's why our blood pressure rises. That's why we walk around exhausted, even when we have laid in the bed for the last 3 days, because our nervous system, the nervous system of Black America, has been on alert for 400 plus years. We have other inheritances, though. We have inherited resilience. Every time they tried to break us, we built something new. When we got the lash, we made gospel. When we got the auction block, we made freedom songs. When we got out of the fields, we made feasts. When they forced us in silence, we made poetry. And today, we have to do the same thing. Okay, got shut down. Let's build some mutual aid. Okay, so we're fearful. Let's build some solidarity. They have lies. We tell the truth. We have truth telling circles, like this very space right here, right now. Don't ever let them convince you that we Black people are just the victims of history. We are the authors of futures. We're not a victim, y'all. We are actually the authors. And I believe that what they fear most isn't just our politics. It is the very essence of who we are, the very spirit that we have, the very essence of who we are, because we have been through the Middle Passage and we still sing. That's dangerous. We've seen our leaders assassinated, not just one, but many, and we still go on. We've been locked out of democracy and we still demand. That's dangerous. And that is also why they try to silence us with laws. That's why they try to bury us in prisons. I believe that's why they send troops into our neighborhoods. Because deep down, I believe they know that we carry something inside of us that an empire will never be able to kill. We carry the spirit. We carry the memory. We carry liberation in the very bones that are inside of our bodies. And when spirit wakes up, nothing, no shutdown, no fascism, no president can hold that particular thing back. And they know this. So what do we do at this point? First, we have to stop begging systems to save us. Because the same systems that enslaved us will not free us. We also have to invest in us. Support Black businesses. Fund Black schools. Show up for Black therapists, Black healers, Black artists, Black farmers. Listen, mutual aid is a wonderful thing. It is a strategy of survival. I said that in another post the other day. And we have to protect each other, y'all. That means watching out for the neighbors when the raids come. That means showing up at city halls. Don't go out there too much, though. That means refusing to let anyone disappear without some form of fight. And we gotta keep telling the truth, y'all. Even when the truth shakes the room, even when they call it treason, what are you willing to do? Because silence is going to kill us, but truth is going to bring us life and that more abundantly. So if you do nothing else after tonight, do this. Check on one of your Black people today. Ask them what they need. Share some kind of resource, even online. Offer a prayer of movement, because our liberation has always been a space that is collective. That's it. That's it. If we're going to be liberated, we got to do it together. I'm going to leave you with this. Empires rise and they fall, but people have always been here. Tyrants shout, but truth whispers longer. Shutdowns will come, but joy has the propensity and the ability to be eternal. So don't just watch the news. Interpret it, name it, and then resist it. And most of all, you got to reclaim your peace in the midst of that storm, because the reality is we're not just surviving this moment, y'all. We're actually working to shape what comes after this moment. They want us to be tired. They want us to be hopeless. They want us to be silent. But listen, y'all, we can be none of those things. We are not none of those things. We have to be awake. We have to be alive. We are unbreakable. And we have to remember that. This has been your daily liberation through our eyes. And until next time, keep breathing, keep building, keep believing. Peace, power, and progress to every person who has listened to this and who is going to listen to this at a later time. Thank you for sitting with me, and I'll be back tomorrow for this week's final daily liberation through our eyes, and then I'll return back Monday after Friday. All right. Thank you so much for listening to the Family Table Podcast and all of our various ecosystems. As you all know, this is a grassroots initiative, and we rely on the generous support of listeners and contributors like you to help grow and sustain this movement. And here are a couple of ways that you can help us to continue to build this impactful ecosystem, okay? First and foremost, you can engage and you can share, okay? Spread the word about the Family Table by sharing our content with your various networks. Also, please consider following us on social media under @allthingstanya on Instagram and TikTok. That is @ALLTHINGSTANYA, both on Instagram and on TikTok. And use our hashtag #TheFamilyTableNC to engage with the conversation. You can also join our new Facebook community that we are starting to grow and build. You can like and follow that group. It is called the Family Table NC. And just show your support by giving us stars and sharing our page as we continue to develop that group as well. And finally, if you want to contribute financially, you're more than welcome to do so. And you can support our work by making a monetary donation to help cover production costs, enhance quality content, and expand our reach as well. You can do that through our Cash App, which is $SWIFT18. That's $SWYFT18. And you can tag that for the Family Table NC. Additionally, we do have options for Zelle and Venmo as well. If you'd like that information, you can contact us at the group. Your contributions and your engagement, they not only help sustain this podcast, but also help to amplify our shared vision for unity, healing, and growth within our communities, of course. So every share, every donation, and every review matters. And we deeply appreciate your commitment to this journey that you're taking alongside us. Thank you so much for being a part of our family, and understand that together we can overcome to see the results at the family table. Let's build together, okay? So for information on questions or collaborations, you can contact us via email at thgbusinessconsulting@gmail.com. That is thgbusinessconsulting@gmail.com. Once again, that is T as in Thomas, H as in hard, G as in girl, businessconsulting@gmail.com. Thanks, and hope to hear from you soon. Bless you all. Bye-bye.